What are the use cases, some examples of when you really should not use background jobs?
So part of the reason that I think we talked about this, and I may have volunteered this, is that I've had some in my consulting, I've seen some different ways people do different development. And some of the places that I've seen, they background all the things. Like even if it's not an external service, or they think, oh, this particular query is going to take a while to do to the database. And sometimes that's not always the case. It's like the de facto everything's a background job.
Right.
And I guess I have a little bit more nuance in that, because it does take more. I mean, I guess it is a little bit more engineering to factor in background jobs and to, I mean, definitely to set it up. But once you have it, there's still a cost involved to schedule that job, have another process pick it up, and whatever. So overall, I would say your compute is more expensive than if you were to do something within a request.
Right. And
So there's overhead. So
yeah,
there's overhead with regard to setting up and setting the background process. So I guess I'm saying, I think sometimes people have, or other programmers may not think of that little bit of extra overhead. And if it's something small and insignificant, then maybe it's best to just not do it as a background job and just like do a query in the database, for example.
right. And I think too that you can, you do background jobs. One of the primary use cases is to make sure that you've got a good, fast user experience. But if you go too far with that, you can actually swing the pendulum too far and actually adversely affect your user experience, because there are feedbacks that you want to give them synchronously, even if it takes a couple of seconds, right? And if you throw that off to a background job processor and it takes 5 minutes instead of 2 or 3 seconds, that could make your user experience even worse. So yeah, I think it's good to, I think, err on the side of caution and don't use background jobs for something until you've determined, yes, this is a good candidate for a background job because it's interfering with my user experience. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
it's
go
kind of
ahead.
like don't optimize too soon in your code. Don't background
Yeah.
job too soon in your design.
Yeah. Like, for example, here's an example that I have in my own product. When you run a report, I think it's like 99% of the time when it returns things to the screen, it's efficient enough. There are no background jobs involved. So, I'm the Postgres guy, I'm the scaling Postgres guy. So all of my queries are highly optimized.
Mm-hmm.
So they run in, totally sub-second, pretty much no matter what parameters they put in. However, when they choose to export something to CSV, that is more labor intensive. And because a lot of CSV, they wanted to take things that are typically in rows and, oh, I want these in columns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very intensive to do, particularly if basically Ruby has to get involved. And if you pick a large report, it's going to time out. So I background job all CSV exports or text file exports, whereas the actual just run a report and let me see on the screen, the 1,000 or 2,000 records it is, that doesn't use background job. So that's an example where the balance I've taken it
Mm-hmm.
in this example where I'm not going to use them for the real-time reports that give output on the screen, but I am going to do the background jobs for the CSV exports.
Right.
If you like this clip and want to watch another one, you can click right here. Or if you want to watch the full video, you can click here.